Let's be clear what happened, who capitulated here and why. And, I don't want to say this because I'm a patriot. I'm an American. But it is the White House who capitulated based on everything I hear and all my sources.
In an absolutely stunning reversal that no one could have seen since the last time he flip-flopped on these tariffs, Trump completely reversed course on most of that chart that he was so keen on showing everybody.
In other words, they charge us, we charge them less, so how can anybody be upset?
In addition to a 90-day pause, most tariffs were reduced to 10%, except for China, which was raised to 125% because of their insolence and daring to implement their own retaliatory tariff. While the Trump administration is going to tell you that this was a masterful gambit and that Trump has done exactly what he wanted to do, putting China in the corner, in reality, Trump finally caved due to the bond market collapsing. Here is a longtime Fox contributor throwing cold water all over MAGA's parade.
I want to tell you right now that Donald Trump outsmarted the world. Trust me, I'm an American. I support my president. But that's not really what happened here, from what I understand. And I know I'll get pushback, but here's what it is. First off, we should point out that one of the good things about this is that Scott Bessent is finally in the White House. He's finally leading this. I mean, up until a couple of days ago, it was Lutnick, it was Peter Navarro, the Commerce Secretary, the trade advisor, very much hawks. Now it's Scott Bessent, who believes in cutting deals as opposed to just just putting these tariffs out there and let's be a mercantilistic economy. That's number one. But number two, let's recall what happened overnight. And from what I understand, and I'm getting this from people that are talking to the White House, what happened in the bond market overnight, the spike in yields on the 30-year and the 10-year bond, which showed that people were dumping our bonds. And who were those people dumping our bonds? Japan, the biggest holder of bonds, was selling bonds. That's what I'm getting from some very big money managers. China, maybe to some extent, but it was largely Japan and others. If you have a mass sale of bonds, that means people are losing confidence in the U.S. economy, on the ability to do deals with us. And from what I understand, this is what forced the hand of this 90-day reprieve. Now, is it a good thing? Are people coming to the table? Yeah. But if you read between the lines, or not even what Scott Bessent said, we have no deals, right? There's nobody that is really there saying, this is what we're going to do. And they paused it anyway. So my thing said, well, I'll give you this. There is some art of the deal here. And by the way, brilliant move by putting China in the corner. But that's a whole separate thing. Because remember, that's a very difficult negotiation. Everybody else is a lot easier. They do want to deal with us. Whether they want to be, forced into really bad trade deals on their end is a whole other negotiating story. But make no mistake about it, you cannot divorce this decision right here from what happened last night, which was, people focus on the stock market all the time. It's the bond market and the sort of lending markets that's the plumbing of the economy. And those markets were imploding last night. And that's why we have a 90-day freeze. Let's see if those markets improve. Someone told me we had a decent treasury auction today. But if you can't sell your treasuries, guys, and people are unloading your treasuries, like Japan, which is, I believe, the largest foreign holder after China.
Just to be clear, there was an auction.
Hey guys, what chapter of The Art of the Deal talks about bullying your trade partners and then caving once things don't go your way? It's getting pretty hard for these people to ignore the truth when it's staring them directly in the face. Check this out. Due to Trump's tariffs, markets now rate Greeks' 30-year bonds a safer investment than U.S. 30-year bonds. And of course, the White House is still trying to spin this as a massive victory. Here's Caroline Leavitt saying that we just don't understand the 4D chess that Trump is playing here.
Excuse me, Raquel, if I could just add to what the secretary said. Many of you in the media clearly missed the art of the deal. You clearly failed to see what President Trump is doing here. You tried to say that the rest of the world would be moved closer to China when in fact we've seen the opposite effect. The entire world is calling the United States of America, not China, because they need our markets, they need our consumers, and they need this president in the Oval Office to talk to them. And that's exactly why more than 75 countries have called, because the United States of America is the best place in the world to do business. And as the president has shown great charge, as the secretary has said, in choosing to retaliate against China even higher. Elena, go ahead.
As Gasparino pointed out on the Fox segment, other countries calling isn't the same thing as the details of a deal. They might have just been calling to say, hey, what the fuck are you doing? As far as we can tell, there are no trade agreements being drawn up due to Trump's tariffs, well, at least any that include the United States. South Korea, China, and Japan have now all agreed to start working together on trade. 3 countries that we all know are historically best friends. Trump has managed to do one incredible thing, and that's bring these 3 ever-fighting countries together. And more countries around the world, including in Europe and in South America, are deciding to build stronger trade relationships with each other than with the United States. Maybe that's finally why they kicked the lunatic Lutnick out of the driver's seat and put Bessent in charge.
Bessent knows this better than anybody. When you have yields on the 10-year rising to 5%, stuff starts shutting down when you have the lending markets screwed up. By the way, who was dumping the bonds? Somebody asked them if it was China, right? Mm-hmm. It wasn't. It was Japan. While he was negotiating with Japan, according to my sources, who are running major money management firms that are involved in the bond market without giving up names, Japan was dumping bonds because they believed this was not a great place to do business. That forced their hand.
But unlike Gasparino, I'm not exactly sure we've got an adult in the room with Bessent. Here's his part of the glaze session that happened with Caroline Leavitt, pretending like we're just not on Trump's wavelength yet.
It took great courage for him to stay the course until this moment. And what we have ended up with here, as I told everyone a week ago, they're in this very spot, do not retaliate, and you will be rewarded. So every country in the world who wants to come and negotiate, we are willing to hear you. We're going to go down to a 10% baseline tariff for them, and China will be raised to 125 due to their insistence on escalation. All this was, again, this was driven by the president's strategy. He and I had a long talk on Sunday, and this was his strategy all along. And that, you might even say that he goaded China into a bad position. They responded. They have shown themselves to the world to be the bad actors. And we are willing to cooperate with our allies and with our trading partners who did not retaliate. It wasn't a hard message. Don't retaliate. Things will turn out well.
They're actually trying to pretend like they won this thing while sticking their tail between their legs and crawling back home. This is maybe one of the biggest political crashes and burns we've ever seen. And the horror show isn't over yet. There's still going to be 10% tariffs on every country and 125% on China. 70% of the items on Amazon come from China. And those remaining 10% tariffs are going to be passed through as well. So I don't expect the bond market to recover too much from this news. The stock market bounced back up nearly 7% after this news, but it's still lower than it was before Trump took office, so this move hasn't exactly reassured investors, and it definitely isn't reassuring me. I'm Tony Hinderman with Really American, and I'll catch you next time.